Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to celebrate Chloe's publication of her debut poetry collection. So, everybody wants to give a thumbs up or a little clap, yay! Chloe, will you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your work?
Sure. Hi. So first I want to say thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Lauren, for so much hard work to organize this and the performers. It's really exciting to get a chance to meet you and see you in real life or Zoom life. There's so many people here. It's really overwhelming and exciting. And I want to thank Lily Poetry Review Books and our publisher and editor, Eileen Cleary, who's been really remarkable. So Viable is the book that recently launched on Valentine's Day. And so it is a lyrical memoir, and it's about a miscarriage and a difficult second pregnancy and postpartum depression. The poems tell you a little bit about the book. The poems are organized into 4 sections. They start with carried, which was right after the miscarriage, carrying during the second pregnancy, carry after the birth, and apologies. There's an opening and a closing poem, which I'll be reading today. And the book is really organized chronologically in order to best tell the story. And we'll be thinking a little bit about story today as the book is organized and how Lauren organized the composition. The book opens with a quote from the picture book, The Book of Mistakes by Krana Lukin. And the quote reads, "Do you see how with each mistake she is becoming?" And I think that really speaks to this book of an acceptance of the narrator's self, it's a personal story, and how we sort of navigate our lives. And there's so much silence around miscarriage. Around 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. So my poems are helping to open up, I hope, this conversation, have less silence around such experiences while also acknowledging what happened to myself. The book is mostly pretty sad, but there is an upward movement and acceptance towards love and possibility. I want to bring your attention to the resources if you have the book or if you're purchasing it. At the end, I've put together all kinds of different books that were of use to me after the miscarriage. And these resources are modeled after the memoir by Megan O'Rourke, The Long Goodbye. She's put together resources at the end of hers as well. So the poems were originally in a manuscript titled Baby Book, which is also the title of Lauren's composition. And it's really become something completely different in Lauren's hands, which is amazing. And we met through Reddit, which is like the most modern way to meet someone. I wasn't on Reddit because I'm not cool enough. But a friend of mine saw Lauren's call for poems. I submitted some poems, and then we were able to connect. We only met, I think, a year ago or so for the first time in person. Otherwise, we've communicated online.
There's 2 of you, Mommy.
We first started talking.
There's 2 of you. Hi, Mommy. And you're both.
Here we go. We first started talking in 2015. I started writing the book in 2012. So it's been a really long process of creating both separately and a little bit together. And I think we've created these 2 really separate pieces that exist next to one another, which is really exciting. And so now Lauren's going to talk a little bit about the music.
Hi, guys. Yeah, this has just been a really fabulous process and journey with these songs. I started writing them in 2015. Yeah. So, and it took me a couple of years to write them. And I found Chloe on Reddit. I was in the middle of doing my master's thesis at the University of Louisville and felt really called to do a work by, for, and about women. And I was seeking a living woman to work with, and Chloe had this incredible collection, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it today. We're going to the song cycle is 6 songs, so I picked 6 of Chloe's poems to set to music, and throughout our little adventure today, Chloe is going to read some of these poems. And we'll hear some of the music that I set. And we've got some really fabulous performers. I'm so excited. This is really special. When Chloe and I started talking about a year ago, when she found out she was going to be published, we had talked about doing some in-person live concerts. And of course, with that not being possible, we're doing an online event, but actually we get to do something really cool today. If we had done a live concert, we would have just had, one singer and one pianist. And today we get to hear from a whole bunch of performers who have touched this piece. So I want to just briefly introduce you to their faces so you can say hello to each of them. And we'll see them again when it's their turn to present their piece in video today. The first person we'll see today is Jennifer Scrow. So this is Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer and Eric presented these songs at, I think I did the wrong one, maybe. Let me see here. Add spotlight. There we go. There's Eric. Hi, Eric. So Eric and Jennifer presented these songs last summer at the National Association for Teachers of Singing annual conference. And that was a real treat for me because I didn't know they were doing it until like a couple of days before. So, and they actually learned and performed the music like remotely. So the first song that you're going to hear today, they didn't even get to perform in the same room. It was kind of magical that they were able to put that together. So we'll see more from Jennifer and Eric in a little bit. And then we'll also see today, this is Jessica Spafford. Hi, Jessica. Jessica performed the US premiere of the whole song cycle. We did that at the Music by Women conference down in Mississippi. So she'll be performing one of our songs a little later. And let's see, Natasha. Go. This is Natasha Foley. Hi, Natasha. Natasha and I studied together at the University of Louisville. She's the soprano that I originally wrote the song cycle for. And we premiered a few of them while we were down there at the college. And we have a really special treat with hers today because she actually did a reading of one of the movements with the orchestra. So we'll get to hear her performing with the U of L Orchestra and get to see a beautiful slideshow of Chloe's great Aunt Dora when we get to that poem. And then let's see here. It always takes like a second. I know there's like, let's see here. There's spotlight and Catherine. Here's Catherine. Okay, and then these are our last performers we'll see today. This is Catherine McKellar and Julia Carey. And they're going to do the last song a little bit for us later. And both of them are in Boston, right, ladies? Yeah. And Catherine has an initiative called Opera on Tap, which is to bring opera, like make it a little more accessible and bring it to new audiences. So she'll talk with that towards the end a little bit too. So these are our performers, and I can't wait to share their videos with you today. Anything else, Chloe, before we kind of actually get into it?
I think we're ready.
Okay. So how we're going to do this, guys, I'm going to be sharing the videos and music as we're ready to watch them together. But just in case you have a little audio or video problem with the streaming, Michelle, who is our house manager today, she's going to be posting links. This is Michelle. She's going to be posting links in the chat all along the way for each of the videos. So if you need to stream it on your own device, you can just click the link and it'll open it right up. When you're doing that, I will show you. If you are watching it on your own machine, you're going to want to mute the shared sound. Let me show you what that looks like. So once I start sharing my screen, you will see this box at the top. It says View Options. And you will want to click this, mute. It'll say my name, Lauren Spavelko, shared sound. So if you do not want to hear the sound that I'm sharing with you from my computer, you can mute that. You will still be able to hear all of us talking. You just won't be able to hear my computer's sound. All right, so let's begin. Chloe, will you read for us?
Excellent. Yeah. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from the book that aren't in the composition, and then some poems from the composition. I was thinking today recently about how some of the poems have changed from the composition and then later in the text. And there's a great quote from Paul Valéry that a poem is never finished, only abandoned. Maybe abandoned is too dramatic of a word, but it really, I think, speaks to the idea that poems feel like living beings and they continue to grow and shift and change depending on the author and what their setting is. So sometimes I'll be reading both versions. The first poem that I would like to read is the opening poem in Viable. It is not set to music. And I thought this would kind of give you a sense of the book. The title is Mid-Thirties. Pigtails undone, she hides behind her mother's legs, 2 tiny hands around one adult knee. Mother leans down, whispers in her daughter's ear. Child smiles, tilts her head, loosens her knee grip. I too know what I would say to a shy child, given the chance. And the second poem that I'll read is Carrying, which is also from the opening section. And this is where the title for this collection came from. The editor, Eileen Cleary, changed a word. Now I can't remember what it had been originally, to Viable, and that felt exactly right for the collection in the end. Carrying. Advice. Slice the avocado around the wide middle and across again until the quarters split. Drop the pit in the trash. Scoop the flesh with a spoon. But it's never that easy. Should I have pierced 4 toothpicks into the side of the pit, balanced it halfway in water, waited for a sprout? Should I have willed life by the windowsill? Most miscarriages aren't mama's fault, doctors say. No one says much else. Silent first trimester, breasts and uterus bulge, strange hungers. Slow shrinking after removal. Night sweats, repeated dream, someone calls my name. I have hope inside of me is a Greek pregnancy euphemism. Funnel clouds trace the land as leaves flip in the wind. I stand in a basement doorway, emergency pack on my back. How do I know when it's over? No siren screamed when the doctor said, the fetus has no heartbeat. My legs in a stirrup, I couldn't rush to shelter. To be, such a weak verb. To howl, to breathe, to linger, more viable. To be as in she is, she isn't, she was, she wasn't. State of being, irregular. Carriage, someone behind the curtains, such magic. Miscarriage, the undoing, avocado pit, dry in the trash. Lauren, did you want to add anything at this point, or should I read objects?
I think let's go ahead. Will you read objects first?
Excellent. So in this case, I'm going to read both from the book and an Italian version, which Lauren translated the poem for me. And you'll see it's slightly different if you were looking at it from the book and her composition. The line breaks have changed a little bit. And if you do speak Italian, which some of you do, as I see you in the audience, you'll hear that there's some changes, some specifics. The tidal basin here in DC isn't mentioned in the Italian version, but rather it becomes Blue Sea. So I'll read the English and then the Italian. Objects. To mourn a woman, carry her picture, wear her lapel pin. There's nothing to wear or carry after a miscarriage. In Japan, mothers mourn lost water children. Gardens of small statues in red knitted hats, bibs. Hands in my pockets, I stand at the edge of the tidal basin, wilted cherry blossoms above and below. And in Italian, Oggetti. Piangere una donna, porti la sua foto, porti la sua spilla. Non c'è niente da portare né tenere dopo un fallimento. In Giappone, madri piangono bambini d'acqua persi, giardini di statue piccole portando capelli rossi, bavaglini. Le mani nelle tasche. Io sto al confine del lago azzurro, fiori appassiti, sopra e sotto. And now for music.
And now for music.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. It is just amazing to me how Lauren has taken just a few lines and then created something entirely different. And then it's interpreted by the pianist, the singer, and it comes together into something entirely different and honestly unimaginable to me before I met Lauren. I had no idea these things were even possible. And this next poem, she's done so even more. It's titled Children's Pool Game. It's the tiniest little poem with so much white space around it. And then she's created a song. So I will read the poem and then we will hear the music. Children's Pool Game. Even with closed eyes, we can find each other again. I'll shout, Marco. You'll shout, Polo. Okay? Marco. Thank you. That was really beautiful. It's always so striking.
I find that I remember the first time I read this poem on paper, and Chloe had put, the Marco call at the end, and then there's just a dash, and there's nothing there, and it just felt like a stab in the heart to me. And when I wrote this in music, one of the things that we sort of play with in text is repetition, right? So I thought that the repetition of the Marco was really powerful, and it has a different meaning every time it's said. Like, it's almost, and Laurel's performance of this, oh my gosh, like, the first time I watched it, one of the moments I really liked was that she covered her eyes, because she's playing a game. And I think it's, sometimes when we lose somebody we love, there's moments where you almost forget for a second, like they're still there. And I musically, I was thinking when she does that first Marco, it's like you're kind of expecting an answer the first time, and then she repeats it, and there never is. It's just so sad.
Good. I've been reading Gregory Orr's memoir, The Blessing, and he writes in there, I can't quote it exactly, but something about the writer, or in this case, the artist, isn't creating a replication of the original world, but rather a new world. And I think with these songs, especially since they're longer and we're able to listen and have more senses involved, we're just present in this world. So the next poem, which is not set to music, is Tell Me About Yours, which I think really speaks to the isolation that I felt many women do after a miscarriage or similar loss. And I really wish that in our culture, broadly speaking, we were more comfortable speaking about our losses and our griefs, and we didn't have so much isolation surrounding these experiences. Tell me about yours. Women silently list their 1, 2, 3. Tell me about yours. I will tell you about mine. Please tell me about yours. This next poem is Quickening, and I'm going to read both versions from the book and the composition. I retitled it for the book English Vocabulary Quickening. I have a series of poems that are definition poems, either in English or in Italian, defining a word or an idea or a phrase into a metaphor or a scene of some sort. I learned Italian as a second language with much struggle in college, and I think that really brought my attention to the vocabulary in Italian and then taught me a lot about grammar and words in English. So first I'll read from the book, and you'll see that it's a lot smaller. It's larger from the earlier version, and then we'll hear the song. English Vocabulary Quickening. This is from the 22nd week of pregnancy. Quickening of the morning light, flutters of joints or whole body, all while I reach for something stretched out on my left side, the smallest of miracles, these human interior pulses. And so maybe it's interesting to hear some of the edits that happened with this earlier version. Quickening. Quickening of the morning light, quickening of my heartbeat on the stairs, and your quickening, flutter of joints or whole body, all while I reach for something, while I stretch out on my left side, the smallest of miracles, these human moments. And the music. Wow, that was so beautiful.
So this song was actually the last one that I wrote of the six, and it was the hardest one for me to figure out, because dramatically as we're walking with this woman through her experience, she's just had this miscarriage, and the first two songs are so powerful and so painful. And I had to figure out how to transition us into the next part of her story where she's having another pregnancy. And one of the things that was really powerful in creating this work and talking about Chloe's poems and working with the music were the conversations that they inspired with women who had experienced these things, or knew somebody that did, because we all do. And one of the sopranos that I was working with at the time, I was in the middle of writing the songs, and she had a miscarriage, and she had a pregnancy a few months after that. And she told me, I feel like I need to talk to you about this because of your project. And I asked her, how are you feeling? And she told me, I want to be excited, but I feel like my joy has been stolen away. And she said, I'm just so worried and so anxious about, what happening again. And she says, I want to be excited and love this baby, but I don't want to be too attached to it too soon. And so I tried to impart some of both the heartbeat, of the new life, and also, but the anxiety that the mom is feeling, the music.
I think the repetition of the word quickening in the song really adds more meaning to the word, kind of the speeding up of the fear, the emotions, or becoming a parent. It really builds on itself. It's really beautiful. So this next song is the one that I am most excited to see what Lauren has done. She put together a video montage or collection of photographs. And the title of the poem is Great Aunt Dora, which I know some of you remember her. I see my mom and dad in the audience, and Marion and her daughter Allison, and maybe other people. I'm sorry if I don't see it yet. So Great Aunt Dora, I just called Aunt Dora, lived to be almost 103. She was 100% the family matriarch. Once I learned how to drive, we spent tons of time, the two of us, food shopping, going to movies, visiting friends. Even when I moved to Italy as a student, I think was the first time, my parents got her this thing called My Mail Station, so she could email me there, and she'd call me right away to ask if I got the email. But we were very close, and I wish, I wasn't ready at the time, but I wish that she had met our child. So this poem is dedicated to her, and really this idea of all of our legacies and family connections to others who we do know or we don't know, we wish we knew, and what we do choose to share with them. So this is titled Great Aunt Dora, to you before you, from the 30th week of pregnancy. She'd been waiting for you. She'd sit in the blue chair under the window, elbows out as if cradling you, swing her arms back and forth, talk about how she'd hold you, teach you to walk between our knees, ask me when you'll come, urge, hurry up. I promised to tell you all about her, how she prepared meatballs, 2 spoons to turn them, how she knew you'd be smart, handsome, and ever so kind. Oh, how she loved beginnings.
So I'll share the music now, and as I said before, we get to a little treat of hearing the orchestra now. So the song cycle has been most performed with piano and voice, but there is a version that has the complete orchestra, and one of these days I'm going to get a whole orchestra to do the entire thing, and Chloe's going to be there to read with us. Yes, there is an orchestration, Jennifer. So yeah, so I hope you will enjoy Natasha's just absolutely stunning soaring voice over top of the orchestra. And this lovely slideshow. It was great to spend some time with these photos, and I'm glad to surprise Chloe with this little present today.
Oh my gosh, Lauren, I'm done for. That was so beautiful.
I'm so glad to share that with you. I know I'm a little emotional myself, right? And I think like I'm watching the chat and seeing people have that heart connection. Um, I saw Gregory. He said, what was it he said? I lost it. There it is. Gregory said, I can so relate to the wish that an older relative could have met your child or children. My father didn't get to meet his grandsons. Yeah, I mean, and that was what I saw in this particular. I love the warmth in this poem, and this beautiful vignette of the generations, in the family, and that there's the unity with you and Dora and your child, and yeah, it's so touching, and some of the thing that I really gravitated toward in Chloe's poems just overall is you have such a gift for containing such powerful emotion and experiences in a really short space. And it's perfect for song, and it's perfect for some of these, other things that experiences that we can create for people. And I love too the line, and I know Natasha does too, because we talked about it many times, about the meatballs, right? How she prepared meatballs, 2 spoons to turn them. And I love that it's that something specific that you remember about a person that you loved when they're gone.
Yeah, and the voice just, your body just moves with the sound internally, maybe externally, if I weren't on camera. Really beautiful. Related, we've been watching a very different, seemingly different topic. We've been watching WandaVision, and it's all about a woman's grief, creating this world that pulls everyone into her. And I think that's the experience of any loss, that we can't see anything not through that lens for a period of time. And it's just this all-encompassing experience. I will read and respond to the chats at some point, but it's difficult in this moment.
Yeah. I've seen just a couple there.
Yeah. All right.
Michelle was going to chime in, maybe.
I was just going to point out there are some beautiful notes in the chat too, just about how honored people are to kind of get to see Aunt Dora in this multimedia art form, and also about our performers' vocal instrument and the having the expanded vocal writing and orchestra color. Yeah, so I think people are really loving the orchestral version of this as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely loved writing. They're truly 2 different versions, because there are some things that the piano can do that the orchestra does not, and there are some things that the orchestra can do because you have a small army of musicians, that they offer just so much color, and they get some of their own special moments too. So yeah, someday I hope to do the whole thing, and I want Chloe there. Chloe has still never heard these songs live, guys. We need to fix this.
And the pandemic. Yes.
Yeah, and again, just spending time with these pictures of Dora and your child. I mean, it was just lovely. It was, and of course I was like, what an amazing life Dora had, like even just from these pictures. And I'm imagining, I mean, she was over 100 years old. There's that picture of her riding the donkey in Santorini in 1971, and she was like already kind of an old woman then,
She did so much. And I can't imagine how she would respond to this. I was, when I was in the MFA program at Sarah Lawrence, I took a oral history class with Stephen O'Connor, and I interviewed her for the project, and I asked her all these questions, and she just kept saying, who wants to hear about me? You think they want to hear about me? And she very explicitly was like, you can tell them any story except for one, which I haven't told, And she seemed happy but confused as to why anyone was interested. But even just to ask questions about what they ate at Christmas and holidays and how they bathed in their home in Newark, New Jersey, so long ago. I mean, it's fascinating. And to kind of think of the feminist thread of the decisions she made. And she would always say, and I guess this is kind of the main offering of Aunt Dora's, you have an opportunity, you take it, which I thought of her when I saw my friend forwarded me your first note, because at first I thought, well, that's ridiculous. How could she take these small little things? And you say that the smaller poems work well into song, but I still don't entirely know how you make that magic happen. And I wouldn't have guessed it, but I thought, well, she would say, do it. What's wrong with you? Here we are.
Thank you, Dora. Thank you.
Should I read the next poem?
Please do.
So Looking Out is in the composition and didn't make it into the book because there's some other poems that are similar, but it really stands out here in the composition. Looking Out at 11, when my child was 11 weeks old. Strips of early day across the floor, blinds half open like your eyes as you extend, swaddled arms break free. We face each other as I carry you for our walk. We stop under the hilltop tree. Sky peeks through the green layers. In a few years, we'll sit at those picnic tables. I'll tell you and eat mozzarella sandwiches. You close your eyes, lean towards me. Our hearts face the other.
Okay, and we'll do music. So these songs, they cycle won an international festival in Italy in Spoleto, so we premiered them there. And this performance from Looking Out is by Lucy Chartan and Luba Podgaskaya. So we'll enjoy their piece.
Strips of early day across the floor, blinds half open like your eyes as you extend. Swaddled arms break free. We face each other as I carry you for our walk. We stop under the hilltop tree. Sky peeks through the green In a few years, we'll sit at those picnic tables, I tell you, and eat mozzarella sandwiches. You close your eyes, lean
So beautiful.
So sweet. I just love it. Just an afternoon walk.
And such nice, I don't know any musical terms, but kind of joyful steps.
Definitely.
All right.
Should we share the last one?
I'm sorry?
Should we share the last one?
Yeah, so Searching, I'm going to read the version from the composition. This is from when he was 8 weeks old. For years, I looked for you around corners, between small hours of morning, and now here you are in my arms, limbs heavy and sodden with sleep. You weigh less awake, head bobbing as you push your legs against my lap, hands against my chest to look behind me, out the window towards the sunshine.
And this will be our last song, and then Chloe's going to read one more poem for us, and then we'll all get to chat. So please enjoy.
Wow, so beautiful. So I have one final poem to read. It's titled Your Creation Story. But before I read it, I just want to thank Lauren again and all the performers for sharing their work here, all the work that went into this. And this is a particularly hard year for performers for obvious reasons. So you'll see in the chat that you can donate to the performers. We'll split it between them, and that would be very kind of you if you're able to. If you purchase my book at this point, I have a special swag giveaway. I got these little notebooks, and I was going to put in some kind of creative prompts that you can use for a variety of art forms if you're interested. If you've already purchased the book and you let me know that you have donated to the performers, I can also send you a copy of the book if you're interested, a copy of the little creative prompt book. I think I call it creative thinking prompt. So this is the final poem, which I hope kind of brings the story to some kind of uplifting conclusion. It starts with an epigraph from a piece by Richard Grant published in March 2018 in the Smithsonian Magazine. The piece was called Do Trees Talk to Each Other? For young saplings in a deeply shaded part of the forest, the network is literally a lifeline. Lacking the sunlight to photosynthesize, they survive because big trees, including their parents, pump sugar into their roots through the network. And the poem is Your Creation Story from When Our Child is 6. That time your father was a stranger to me, he leaned against a statue of a man on a horse. The man's eyes sprouted from fallen seeds and rain. Your father and I said, hello, in the middle of a New York City square. He rolled up a newspaper. There were newspapers then, and we walked. I tripped over uprooted sidewalk slabs. City planning be damned. We ate outside, ignored the squirrels and pigeons. A few seasons later, we imagined the possibilities of a you, a tiny seed with a full coat. You and I swelled outward as your coat split, and I found clothes that stretched. In an office built over subway tunnels, we saw your silhouette, lit as if science were magic. We heard your quickly beating heart, walked home, our footsteps adding to the rhythm. 3 weeks early that spring, you came into the dry world. This is all true, but also not, because so much is missing. Like the sun impossibly above us, here and not, warming us just enough. It comes to this. Your creation is yours. I was your home. Now we all nudge you forward, make room for you to see out. Balancing between the creek and trees, we walk the pipe path. Sometimes you run ahead, but we keep you in our sight. Thank you.
Chloe, thank you so much for reading and sharing all of your poems for us today. Yeah, it's just incredible. I love that. That's the Your Creation Story was new to me as well because you wrote that later,
Mhm.
and I think that's it's a beautiful way to end.
Thanks.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your words.
Thank you.
Um, so I just want to invite now. We're gonna do a little Q&A with our performers who are with us, and with me and with Chloe. And thank you guys, everybody who's here today, to join us and has listened today. If you guys have questions and want to drop them in the chat, please do. We have a short list of ones that we'll do too. I'll add everybody to our spotlight so we can see everybody's faces. So while I'm adding everybody, I'll pick one of our questions first for Chloe. Why did you choose to share your personal experiences this way, and what do you hope that others will experience in reading Viable?
So I think the first instinct was really personal, that it was the only way that I could try to understand what was happening and what my emotions were. And then as I started to write and edit them and realize there was something there that might speak to others, it was kind of more than just a diary entry or self-discovery. I started to put them together, and they went through so many different versions. There was a lot of repetition as I struggled with each individual kind of idea and understood it better, and a lot fell by the wayside. I have a huge file of very similar repetitive poems. But it felt necessary as I just couldn't find things that spoke to me in a secular fashion. I found a lot of really religious spaces that are comforting for some, but I was really looking for some kind of conversation to enter into. There's been more and more. So I mentioned the resources at the end of the book. I found some other books since then. I'm hoping to put together some more on my website with an updated list that hopefully is helpful for others too.
And to add on to that, this was a question from Chloe for everybody else here. Uh, let me see here. Where is it? Okay. How do you collaborate, build upon, or interpret a story that's not your own? And how do you connect to another person's experience? So, does anybody want to speak into that?
I'm happy to speak about that because it's not my experience, this story. But I feel that the work that you created, Lauren, with Chloe's words and poetry really helped me enter into the story. Oftentimes when I'm looking at a song, it's important to understand what the perspective of the composer is. I can get a sense of the reading of the composer's view of the poetry through the sound world that you've created, and then I try to enter it. I try to allow myself to enter it and experience it, and particularly with objects. That was a deeply moving piece to work on. Yeah. So anyway.
I write a lot of poems about music. I sort of collaborate with musicians who, most of whom are not actually with us anymore and are familiar with the videos and recordings. And I'm not exactly sure what that impulse is. I mean, I know part of me wishes I could be a musician, but I don't really have the manual dexterity to play an instrument very well. And for some reason, language is more like my instrument. But, poetry has a sort of musicality to it, at least, as I try to practice it. And somehow it's not like trying to get inside somebody else's head, but it's trying to say, okay, you've got to somewhat, I mostly write about jazz and a lot of it is instrumental. So there's nothing like exactly a story to try to connect to. So I try to let it enter into me and then express, not feelings is a little, mushy way of talking about, but what's he really evoked, which is emotional and, maybe some intellectual reaction to it. What I think it might be adding to conversations in the world, like what does just pure instrumental music convey, that maybe can't be conveyed in words, but it can sort of be translated. It's hard to say because it's, it's not a totally intellectual process, but it's a very interesting question. And then to see the kind of collaboration going in a little more in the traditional way where you've got original words and original music and people working together. It's fabulous that this can be done, and your music was wonderful. Of course, the poetry is great. I would love to engage, and I think I mentioned in my private note to you, Lauren, that I would love to engage in some similar collaboration sometime. So I know a few jazz people here in the DC area that you've really inspired me to pursue something like that.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment, Gregory. As far, I want to speak in a couple of things. First, I know, Laurel, it looked like you were going to add in, so we'll give you a chance to speak too. And Gregory mentioned sort of what role or weight an instrumental could have, right? And I think maybe Eric and Julia could speak into that because there are pianists with us today. Because certainly the piano has an important part to play.
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit if you like. I think just from hearing Chloe's poetry, reading it, the ones that are in the cycle, but also hearing a lot of them today, I think what's very powerful, sorry, my cat is a little bit vocal. What's very powerful is how much is suggested or hinted at and how much there is between the sparse and beautiful lines of her poetry. And I think Lauren does a great job of presenting that sort of unspoken world musically in a way that doesn't compete with the poetry in any fashion. And I think it was also a great idea on her part to open the whole cycle with this extended, almost improvisatory sounding piano prelude. And it kind of enters us into this subject matter that there aren't a lot of words for, and that is unspoken, and also for the sort of life force that never got a chance to have words of its own, but is very much there. I think it's just a beautiful representation of that.
Eric, we have the same wall color. It's awesome. We look like we went for that nice mango. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think like compared to like so much rep, like if you study classically, like as a singer, you often don't get to sing in English, so you're not relating to the language. and you often don't get to sing like in the kind of more like almost conversational, really intimate way that Chloe has written. So I think I was just thinking like this set I think had way more access points than a lot of music that usually you'd get to sing, especially like in an academic setting. And then I just also like with any trauma, it's so likely that you're probably only 1 or 2 degrees away from it, even if it hasn't happened to you. Like, you know, your mom or a sister or a friend of a friend, or even just knowing um, the poet who I know through Lauren, who is my friend, you know, it's like it is a really close, intimate story. So yeah, to me, it had so many access points, which really drew me to want to perform it.
Okay. I really like to hear how everybody's sort of engaging, differently with this work. Um, I'll pull from one of our other questions here. Why did you choose to share these songs specifically as a performer? Like, why these songs, or why do you think it's important?
I'll talk about that. So I had the very lucky experience with this music that I was around when Lauren was writing them. With her and I being close friends, and with my voice in mind for this piece, I got to help. I remember sitting on the piano bench with Lauren as she's writing these melodies and seeing like, oh, how does this work here? No, this is better. Or like, oh yeah, you get that big B flat, go for it. So having that, obviously I knew that I was going to be involved in this work. And then I just decided, I kind of told my voice teacher in grad school that on my graduate recital, I was like, well, I'm going to do these first 3 pieces, which at the time it was Objects, and then Children's Pool Game, and then Great Aunt Dora. And that was what the first 3 songs that Lauren had written. And I was like, I'm just going to do these. And it was kind of against everything that the School of Music allowed on recitals, but we just went with it because I was so invested in this piece, this music, these words. And while I haven't had the exact same experiences that Chloe depicted in her poetry and texts, like so many others, we can all relate to it, whether it's ourselves and or someone really close to us. I just think it's something that isn't brought up enough, and there's this weird cloud hanging over it, and it is something that should be normalized to talk about, to sing about, to share grief in this way. So I was just really, really excited to be a part of this project, and I got emotional listening to everyone sing this today because it's like a piece of me in here, and hearing everyone else love it as much as we all do is just a really special thing.
If I can add a little bit of why I also was drawn to these pieces, just briefly, I met Lauren through my search for repertoire that represented a 21st century voice for women. And I'm in the process of developing with Eric as a collaborative partner 2 recital series called the Project 2020 series, which selects 20 women composers and presents their works that were written within the last 20 years over a 2 recital series. And, I've been listening to a lot of music and looking for text that I feel really honestly expresses the truth about a woman's experience today. And when I got in touch with Lauren, I think it was through maybe the composers, the New Opera Connections website or a Facebook page or something, and she sent me a message and she said, oh, I have this collection, this song cycle called Baby Book. And I remember the first time that Eric and I kind of read through it, and we we were exploring the piece, it was just so striking how expertly crafted it was, how she was able to elevate and synthesize at the same time Chloe's poetry, and like Eric said, so beautifully and expertly add this poignancy through these large instrumental sections where, you know, just there was the depth needed to be spoken just musically and as a supportive layer. And so it was very important to me to want to feature her work and for people to know both of these amazing women's work. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know them. And our intention is to share objects looking out and searching on the program because we couldn't just pick one. We just couldn't pick one. So.
First of all, thank you so much, Chloe and Lauren, for, can you all hear me? Okay, we just ended nap time, so you might hear some chirping in the background. So my good friend, Kelly Hollis, she's a member of Juventus New Music Ensemble, and she sent this cycle to me about halfway through my second pregnancy. And I couldn't work on it at that point, just like emotionally. But I did, it kind of took like the pandemic. My baby is 16 months now, but after having a healthy baby and everything, we you know, all of the concert halls and everything were shut down, so like a lot of musicians, I started working on music that I really wanted to work on and sort of what we had kind of coming up, and I stumbled upon this cycle that Kelly had sent to me, and it was 2 years to the of the anniversary of my first pregnancy loss, and so I started working on them, and I contacted Julia to record them. But I just really quickly, I wanted to say, my first pregnancy ended in the second trimester, and it was, you know, pretty traumatic. And I went to some support groups afterwards, and I heard these stories from these women that were just stunning and horrific. And I had heard about miscarriage before, and pregnancy loss, but I had said to Kelly, like, there is nobody telling these stories, and I'm sure there are, but where are these stories, and where are they in classical music? And so I was just so grateful to stumble upon the series. I'm almost at the point where I can sing full games, but it's still difficult emotionally sometimes. But yes, that's the piece Searching. It was kind of a full circle. I performed it I aired it like on my baby's 1 year birthday ish. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. I think your kind of collective physical interpretation of the songs is really amazing, and it literally takes power, as we can see as you're singing or performing the music on the piano, and it just takes it to this other place. Like Jennifer was talking about the layers of the music kind of adding something more, and it feels so brave of you all to do that. Like, I can sit alone in the room and cry a little and drink some tea. The poets are often so isolated, pandemic aside, and it's really interesting to kind of think about literally bringing your body into the space and adding these other dimensions.
I will add in, it's, these are the kinds of conversations that, I know Chloe wanted to foster, and certainly I wanted to help her in a different way to open that space. Um, because yeah, I mean, we need to talk about these things, we need to be able to work through them. And I have to say too, Catherine, you're saying I'm almost to the point where I can sing this song, and I'm hearing like from a number of my sopranos that are working on it, it truly is a process. Like it is as much for many of them an emotional endeavor as anything. And especially with us as singers, like our body is our instrument, and that's where we like carry our feelings, right? So, when we're working with something that is this powerful and, emotionally affects you, where does that sit? Of course, like right in your voice, right? Like I'm trying not to cry. So, yeah, it is. It's like, I think one of the things that's been a great joy, as much as it makes sound strange, is when a soprano says, yeah, I like totally tried to sing through these pieces, or I listened to these pieces and I'm like ugly crying at my kitchen counter, because it's tapped into something visceral for them. And and that once they work through that process where they can then share it with others, this is the experience that listeners are having too. I'll also say, as far as these conversations, around miscarriage, that we haven't had as much in the past. Like, it affects the women, of course, but it also affects all the people that support them, including our men. And, when I was working and writing with these pieces, before I had written anything at all I had was Chloe's poems and an idea. And I came to my composition professor. His name was Dr. Steve Rouse. And I told him, his words to me when I went to pick something to write about for my master's thesis was, don't write a pretty piece, pick something important to write about. And, I brought him these poems and I said, I spent weeks searching for the perfect thing. And I said, this is what I want to write about. And I read them with him and I told him my plan for the piece. And his response to me was, my wife and I lost a baby 25 years ago, and it was like, he had never talked about it. And so it was like, even for my professor in this space with me, it was like, that might have been one of the first opportunities that he had to say, yeah, I experienced this loss. I experienced this trauma. And it affected him just as much, like it was a loss for him too. He's like, we picked her name. We knew she was coming, yeah. And so I hope that this is helpful and creates that sort of healing space that people need. I'll turn the conversation in another direction too, because I know we have some writers with us as well. Chloe, like, what has this experience been like with music and for your poems? And I know specifically I can speak like kind of what I look for as a composer in collaborating with a poet. Like if this is something that some of you writers are looking, like you're like, wow, this is amazing, and I would like to have that kind of experience with my work. Like I can speak into some of that, but I don't know if there's anything specific that you want to share too, Chloe.
I think I learned something new about the poems by talking to you, and kind of so much of writing and grad school and classes is picking a genre and saying, this is what I do. But then there's so much more overlap with the different arts and the things that influence us, that I think we don't need to be in that space. And it's kind of opened up my mind as I think about music and how it could influence me. I've always thought a lot about visual art, but not music as much. But it kind of opens it up. Sincerely, I'm not sure why you pick these poems over other poems. I mean, they're all my babies, so I love them all very much. And I'm not sure how you saw something that I entirely didn't see. I mean, I never wrote something saying, I'm going to give this to Lauren, and she's going to create something new with it. So maybe this is bad advice, but I don't think we writers should be writing towards that unless we're explicitly writing music. Lauren is also kindly teaching my son keyboard, and he's been writing songs, and it's curious to see how he just kind of picks a word and starts to repeat. Is one song that's all one word, and it starts to kind of repeat, but it sounds different in different places. And I think that's what we want to do with the poems, is they're placed side by side, that will be repeating themes and words that speak to each other as they're next to each other. And there's a lot of common language that we artificially separate. So I don't have any advice, but those are just some thoughts.
Yeah, I will say, like, as Chloe said, she didn't create any of this with music in mind, but it was something that I found as soon as I read them. So for any of you writers that maybe you're interested in working with a composer, this is something you would like to do. Chloe and I have a Facebook group called Composer Writer Connection, because we found each other on Reddit, but we thought it would be cool to like actually put a space where people could meet each other to do that. So yeah, if you would like to join that, please, like, you know, and share things occasionally. You know, sometimes the composers will say, hey, I'm looking for something on this theme or this topic or whatever, or the poets will offer things. And there's been some new pieces that have come out of that group. For me specifically, the thing that I'm always compelled by is personal story and emotional experience. So obviously Chloe's poems have that in abundance. And the other thing for song, I think that you have to remember is length. So like a little text goes a long way. And that's part of what I really liked about Chloe's, is she's got a knack for conveying a really powerful idea in a really short space. I love just the language that she uses. And one of the things I wasn't finding in some of these older, more formal poems was it didn't feel modern. It didn't feel conversational. It didn't feel like it had that immediacy of connection that I wanted. So for some of those reasons, that's what I gravitated towards in Chloe's poetry.
Kind of related to that, there's a question from some of our notes that I find really interesting. I was wondering for you guys, Chloe and Lauren, if you could tell us a little bit about the sound quality of words, and maybe how you think about that both as a poet and then maybe Lauren as a composer too.
Yeah. I definitely read poems aloud to myself and listen for places where I stumble, or if there are too many consonants or harder sounds or open vowels and it sounds too repetitive. I try to make it not monotonous, but maybe have certain internal rhymes repeat themselves, so we kind of echo back within the poem or to other poems in the collection. I do include some Italian words. There's a lot of debate about whether or not that makes sense or not. I like the sound of them. I feel like they're mine. I don't think we should kind of isolate our pieces from languages that are ours, whatever as common or uncommon they might be. Yeah, and I definitely will, at least before when there wasn't a pandemic, take walks or do something physical and kind of repeat certain words or a line to myself, which is usually how a poem germinates or begins, with some kind of sound that just repeats itself. Maybe it's iambic pentameter in some way, repeating the body's heartbeat and it's deep in there. Or maybe it just comes to me. I don't write formal poems, but I think doing something physical like walking or cooking or slicing something or even baking bread if there's time really helps to kind of bring the words into the body. And then hearing the words over and over in my mind really helps. And I think if it really helps to prepare for readings and hear the poems aloud and then notice where something is really boring and you realize you're saying the same thing over and over. And that's a great editing technique, especially as you put all the poems together and you hear, look, I've done a find and search in the document, and I've said the word sleep 18,000 times, which those of you who have kids, that's all that we're thinking about. How can we go to sleep? And noticing that repetition and the sounds and how they might mimic the experience in some way or not.
The sound quality of words is something I think a lot about with singing. And classical singing, especially when we start working with foreign languages. The first one everybody learns is Italian, because Italian is beautiful. Yeah, Jennifer, do you want to say something about that? Oh, okay, you're just agreeing. So yeah, the Italian language is gorgeous, and it sings well. Everything about the cadence of it is just gorgeous. The vowels are beautiful, and some other languages maybe don't have that as much, but and certain, I will say, certain words in English, like, we sort of have this association, how certain words, like, you either really just love the sound of that word or you really don't. I always think of the word moist for people, right? Like, people have like a real feeling about that word, and some of the words that sort of stuck out in this one that I always get comments on, the singers love meatballs in the Dora one. They're like, I never get to sing a song that has the word meatballs in it, and it was it's just fun, and it's playful and it's silly. Or same thing in the looking out, the mozzarella sandwiches, Thank you, Italians. Mozzarella, right? Like, I will say, like, the other, like, specific sound quality of a word that I've had singers talk to me about is actually the word miscarriage, because they say the word miscarriage just in its sound is not necessarily beautiful. And I've been asked before, how are you going to set that to music? It's just an ugly word to sing. But I did. I found a way, Yeah, but I think certainly as I'm listening and reading the poems, I'll read aloud a lot, to find, the rhythm, the stress, the high and low, so that when I'm setting it for voice, it matches it. If you're working with the text and the sound qualities that's already apparent, even just in speaking it, it will always feel good to sing. It will always sound better. So, yeah. Is there any other questions from our audience or anything our performers want to share about themselves or their projects?
I just wanted to say that, well, one thing I just was really excited to hear about, how this cycle came together and everything. And definitely I've been looking for pieces that that just speak about the female experience and everything. So, and Opera on Tap has we have an event coming up on the 13th that Searching's going to be in, just celebrating women's strength for Women's History Month. And yeah, I just also want to say, I think the way that the performing arts world is now more than ever, people are looking for subject matter that speaks to our time, just our times now. And I think, and voices that have been marginalized throughout history are being celebrated more and more. And there's just more platforms than ever and more people watching. So thank you so much for setting up that the Facebook group as well. That's really just so exciting to see.
I just want to say hi for a second, and sorry, I was a little distracted with my kid for a lot of the event, but I just want to say thank you to Catherine for bringing the song cycle to my attention, because I wouldn't have known about it without her, and it's amazing music. And it's also cool, Catherine and I did it first virtually over the summer, and then we just did it in person for the first time last week, which was so exciting. Because I already knew how our parts lined up together from studying the score, of course, but it's just a totally different feeling when you're actually in the room and you can kind of react to each other's performances in real time. So, yeah.
I just really appreciate that we're able to do this all together, and it's such a unique experience to be able to include Chloe, and to celebrate her and her amazing collection today. And yeah, one of these days, I'm telling you, we're gonna do a live concert, and I want Chloe to have the opportunity to read her poems as she did with all of you today, with just an in-person audience. I think that will be really special. Mhm. I saw Amy was talking. She asked again, yeah, about how to buy Chloe's book. It looks like House Manager Michelle, thank you so much. Just posted those links again. Please do check out her books. Her book and buy it. Support her, please, because she's just made a really incredible collection, and it's taken years of work to get it here. I will also just say too, our landing page for this event, which Michelle, would you post that please as well? There's great links there so that you can learn more about our performers and what they're doing and some of their initiatives, like Catherine's Opera on Tap and Jennifer's Project 2020 commissioning initiative for women composers. And please do, if you feel compelled, in addition to buying Chloe's book today, if you want to make a donation to our performers, that's very much appreciated.
Could I say something quickly?
Yes.
In support of what's going on and supporting you guys and Chloe, I'm going to be writing a review, and I think Chloe mentioned I want to interview you, and I'm working on my questions for that now. With luck, it'll be published around April 1st, and I do a monthly column in an online arts magazine. Of course, I'll share the link with Chloe when it's up, and I hope she'll share it with you, and it could keep moving around, because it's one of the things I really like to do is interview my fellow writers and try to put the work up there farther than it might go otherwise. So I'd love to be able to share that with you all when the time comes. So
thanks. I appreciate it, Greg. And I'll definitely share it out with everyone. This was so great. Thank you so much, Lauren. I really appreciate it. I look forward to meeting everyone one day in person, giving you all lots of hugs without COVID. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it was just a beautiful afternoon and a very successful event. So thank you all for sharing, and thank you all for listening and joining us today.